Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this Lunch and Learn webinar, which is part of our Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today we'll be talking about how to create topography and terrains in ARCHICAD. We'll be looking at three separate scenarios or workflows that we can follow when creating topography in ARCHICAD. First, we'll use a DWG drawing which contains contour lines to create a topographic model. We will then use this topographic model to calculate volumes of soil to be removed, and then we'll take a look at importing surveyor's data from the appropriate file formats. So without further ado, let's get started with creating this topographic map from a contour line drawing that's available to us. The first thing I'll do is create a new worksheet where I can then import this DWG drawing. So simply by right-clicking on the worksheets in my navigator, I can create a new independent worksheet, which I'll name contour lines, and then we can start the import process. So I'm going to use the drawing tool to place the DWG for this topographic map. So I just browse for the DWG and place open. Because I'm placing a DWG, ARCHICAD will prompt me to determine what units this DWG has been created in, and I already know that this DWG has been drawn in meters. That prompt should have appeared. We believe that the webinar software delays the display that a little bit. So here we go. So ARCHICAD has now prompted me what this has been drawn in, so I can specify that this has been drawn in meters. So I can place this topographic drawing on my worksheet. The next step I need to do to make this available for snapping is to explode this drawing. So simply by selecting the drawing, I can right-click on it and use the context menu to explode this drawing. So I'll do that, and this has now turned this drawing into lines available in ARCHICAD. So if I now go back to my ground floor plan, I can use trace and reference to show this drawing as a reference for myself. So by opening up the trace and reference palette from the trace and reference menu, I can ask ARCHICAD to browse for this trace and reference and use that contour lines drawing as a trace available to me. I can now use the mesh tool to start creating the actual three-dimensional geometry. The mesh tool has a number of settings available to me. I'm going to use the default settings that come with the template, because this has been set up to be a normal soil with a grass top already enabled. So what I need to do is trace the site. So I have created that geometry, and at this point I can ask ARCHICAD to show the trace and reference over the currently active drawing, so I can see how all the contour lines will slot onto this drawing. At the moment, trace and reference is not displaying text to me. That's why I can't see the contour line elevations. But if I use the filtering tool in the trace and reference palette, I can ask ARCHICAD to show the text elements on the contour line drawing for me as well. So now with the mesh created and having selected the mesh with my mesh tool active, I can use Magic Wand to simply create the exact same contour lines as part of this mesh. So holding that spacebar and clicking on the line, I can create those lines as part of the mesh to add them as individual contour lines within this mesh for me to use. So I simply spacebar click on each individual contour line, which has been set up in my drawing, and this has added these lines to my mesh. So the first thing I'll do is assign the elevation to these lines then. So simply by clicking on one of these lines, I can select that contour line, and then by clicking on one of its points again, I can access the elevate mesh point command from the path palette. So I simply click on the elevate mesh point, and I can see from this drawing that this is 1 meters in elevation. So I simply type in 1000 and make sure that I check the apply to all checkbox here, since by definition contour lines points are at the same elevation. So I click OK, and then I can select the next contour line in this drawing, which I can see is at a 3 meter elevation. So I just click on the point again. The pad remembers the command I used last, so I can simply just type in 3000 and then press return to create that elevation. I'll do this 3 more times. So I click on this line here, which is at the 5 meter elevation. Click this line here, which is at the 7 meter elevation. And then I can click this line here, which is at an 8 meter elevation. At this point, I also click the corners of the mesh to assign the appropriate heights to those. So clicking the corner point of the mesh, I can see from the topographic map that that's at 8 meters. So I will assign 8 meters to just that point only. And then I can click the other corner of the mesh to assign 7 meters to click that point there. This has created the mesh for me, so I can actually turn trace and reference off, and these contour lines now remain in my mesh. So if I take a look at my 3D window here, you can see that this geometry has been created for me by calculating the appropriate points on the surface of that mesh. There are still 2 more cosmetic settings I can enable to make this mesh appear nice both in 2D and in 3D. So firstly, in 3D, I'll select the mesh and then open its settings to make all the ridges smooth. This will do away with all that triangulated data that has been introduced as a result of these contour lines. So this now displays the mesh as a nice smooth surface. And I can ask ARCHICAD to do the same on floor plan as well. So if I select the mesh and go into its settings again, under the floor plan section settings, I can specify which lines should appear on the surface of this mesh in floor plan. So if I specify that I'd only like to see the user-defined ones, the ones I just clicked in, I can create this mesh to make sure that only the appropriate lines are being shown to me and not all the calculated lines that ARCHICAD has created as a result of the process. At this point, I can now assign a sea level altitude to my entire site. Because I would still like to work with the datum level on my ground floor, I can specify that that datum level corresponds to 65 meters in elevation from main sea level. To do that, I can simply go to Options, Project Preferences, and then Project Location. And in this dialog, I can specify what the altitude above sea level is, which will be 65 meters for this site. I can click OK, and this has fixed that value. So all of these points now know that they are that the datum level, which is 0 here, is 65 meters above sea level. So if I now need to show the elevation of a specific point on this mesh, I can use my level dimension tool to simply click on the surface of the mesh, and that will read out the elevation of that point within the mesh measured from the datum point by default. However, if I select the text in this level dimension tool and activate its settings, I can ask ARCHICAD to, instead of the measurement from the project 0 level, measure this level from sea level. So if I activate the sea level auto text in the dimension settings, ARCHICAD has now updated the dimension so that it reads main sea level related elevations. If I now move around this dimension tool on the surface of this mesh, it remains associated to the mesh. So as I move it around, you can see that going down the slope neatly decreases the elevation above main sea level. So I can always know that I'm currently 67 meters above main sea level here. So this is how you can create very easily three-dimensional meshes based on contour lines from a drawing. This technique works with just about any drawing available. So the drawing I used, for example, came from an OS survey, which is available on the GMAP service online. Once we have created a terrain, we can actually use the information contained in this mesh to fetch data and determine quantities that we can use. In this drawing, I have prepared two meshes. One is the existing site, and the other one will be to be demolished part of these meshes. I have also created a morph to represent the building, but this doesn't have to be a morph. This can be any other building element available in ARCHICAD, and all of this would work. I have pre-established the solid element operations that happen between these elements. Solid element operations are simple operations that can happen between solids in ARCHICAD, and these remain associated, and they are dynamic connections. So when the elements move, the connections are maintained and updated accordingly. So if I now move this building onto my site here, so that it actually cuts into the site and sits on the surface of this mesh for me, you'll see that if I change my renovation filters to show the appropriate data, I can use this information to determine how much soil will need to be removed from the site for the construction of this building. So if I ask ARCHICAD to show me the demolition drawings, so the to be demolished elements, ARCHICAD highlights to me the volume that needs to be removed from that site. And if I open up my element information palette from the window palettes menu, by clicking on this element, I can use this data to immediately determine that I will need to get rid of 138 cubic meters of soil. I can use this exact data to be displayed in a schedule as well. So if I activate my soil volumes schedule that I have prepared here, that will read out this exact same value for me. And if I had more than one mesh, this would also summarize the total amount of soil that is to be removed from the site. If I now go back to my drawing here, my 3D window, and ask ARCHICAD to show everything for me, if the design changes, let's say I move the building on the site, and line it up with the surface of my mesh here. Once I've done this, you can see that the volume immediately updates. So if I'm now looking at the demolition filter again, because this is a dynamic connection between the elements, that updates immediately. And as you can see, because I moved the building further down on the slope, I now need to remove a bit less. So instead of 138, I will now need to get rid of 135 cubic meters of soil. The exact same information gets updated in that soil volumes schedule as well, which is immediately available to me, and I can use schedules to be exported as Excel files, so I can use this to create pricing or bills of quantities for the project I'm currently working on. The last option I would like to show you today to deal with soil is the easiest option available to us, which is simply to import the data already available to us in a Surveyor's format. So if I open up this document here, you can receive one of these XYZ format files from a surveyor, which can be prepared for you. This is a very simple tabulated file which contains values for every point in the mesh in an X, Y, and Z format, and we can use ARCHICAD to import this file to automatically create a mesh within ARCHICAD. So to do that, I can simply go to the File menu, and under the interoperability options, I can use the Import Mesh from Surveyor's Data or Place Mesh from Surveyor's Data option. If I choose this option now, I can use this XYZ or TXT file. The format is irrelevant for us here. And when I open this file, I need to specify what units this file has been prepared in, which is in meters, and then I can ask ARCHICAD to either define the location graphically or to place it in its original location. I'm going to define the location graphically and leave the sea level settings as they are. So once I click OK, I can simply graphically place this mesh anywhere. So clicking at this place has placed this mesh for me. So if I go into my 3D window here, you can see that this mesh has been very easily placed from three-dimensional point data and generated. This mesh works the same way that a mesh would do if I simply created in ARCHICAD myself. So I can pick up on any one of these points to interact with that particular point, either by changing the elevation or colliding it with other building elements and using solid element operations to remove volumes from this mesh.